Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are here to do the crazy wrap-up of April. I read 13 books. 13 books! These were the 13 books I read during the month of April. I need to put it down because it's very heavy. I read a lot during April. It's not usual. It's not something that usually happens to me. What does usually happen to me is my bad memory. So I probably don't remember anything about any of these books, which means this video is going to be very interesting. Also, we're back to basics. Do you recognize the background? I used to record in front of the sofa when I first moved to this house. Oh, the feeling. Let's get started. Let's dive into the stats of the month. Across these 13 books, I read 3,632 pages. Oh my god, who is she? These books were divided between 4 young adults and 9 adult books, or new adult, or whatever the opposite to young adult is. And the genres were 7 mysteries or thrillers or mystery thrillers, 4 contemporary, 1 dystopia, and 1 fantasy. Star ratings, I gave one of them 1 star, 2 of them 3 stars, 3 of them 4 stars, 5 of them 5 stars. What? And 1 DNF. And 1 is still in progress. I didn't want to count it as DNF because I haven't quite made up my mind yet, but I haven't finished yet. So it might be a DNF, it might not, I don't know, let's just, go with it. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is still in progress and I'm on page 160. This follows the story of a girl that is making her final project for school, and she decided to investigate this murder that happened 5 years ago of a girl that died in her school. And her boyfriend back then was accused of being guilty, even though he never got charged or anything, but then the boy killed himself. 5 years later, she's trying to investigate this. The reason why I'm still powering through this is just because this story, even though it's funny and the main character makes me laugh and the investigation is fun and I'm curious to see what happened, I just find it so incredibly unrealistic, and that's something that usually doesn't bother me in books. I don't care if they're realistic or not, as long as they're fun. But the fact that this is a 16 or 17-year-old girl investigating a murder and everyone seems to be okay with that. If Only I Could Tell You by Hannah Beckerman. This was on my list of 12 books for 2020, and this follows a story of 2 sisters that were very close when they were young, but something happened along the way and they haven't spoke to each other ever since. They both have a daughter. The daughters are both 16 years old, I think, but they're not in each other's life because the moms don't allow it. And now the mom, their mom, is dying, question mark? Is that part of the synopsis? Anyway, the mom is dying. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, but sorry if it is. The mom is dying and she's trying to make her 2 daughters reunite, and also the mom has no idea what happened in the past and why they're no longer friends. So she's trying to discover that, and we discover it along the way. There's a lot of secrets in the past. It's so emotional. It didn't make me cry, but it had some good parts where I had to hold my breath and count to 3, and it's a family-driven story. If you like that, then go ahead. Oh, I gave that one 5 stars. Accidental Heroes by Danielle Steele. Another book for my 12 books for 2020. This one follows the story of this lady that works at the airport security. Is it in JFK? Yeah, in JFK, New York. And she finds a postcard in one of the trays where you put your bags and your stuff to go through the scanning machine. She finds a postcard there. She thinks it has a suspicious message. So she decides to escalate and tell her supervisor and the people above what's going on, and they all start to investigate this case. And then there's this plane flying to San Francisco from New York to San Francisco, and everything is related, and it hit very close to home for me because obviously this is part of my job, and these things, even though they are unlikely to happen, they are real and they can happen. So it did hit very close home to me. It did make me cry towards the end. I could totally relate to the feelings of the crew, of their being scared but having to put on a strong face for the passengers, and the spirit of teamwork and having to trust your own instincts even when that makes you look like a fool, and all those things. So it did hit very close home to me and it did make me cry, but I think it only hit me like that because of my job. So I ended up giving it a 4 stars, not a 5 star, but also because I wouldn't consider this one of my all-time favorite, but it's a very good read. It's super short. I don't think I've ever read anything else from Danielle Steele, so I don't know if this is always the way she writes, if everything is very intense, but it's very fast-paced. They're always investigating what's happening, and there's always something happening. So 4 stars for this one. Oh, ay. The Farm by Jajuan Ramos. This is supposed to be a dystopia about this world where women cannot have kids. So there's this farm where women that can have kids go into this farm to get pregnant and have said babies. This is what I thought this book was going to be about, like this alternative universe where the human race is facing extinction. They are at risk of disappearing because women can no longer get pregnant. That's what I thought. In reality, it's nothing like that. Basically, there's this farm where women do go get pregnant and have babies, but that's for millionaires who cannot have kids or simply don't want to be pregnant themselves to not damage their bodies and whatever. So it's like this illegal activity where people pay a lot of money to get basically a person that will get pregnant for them, and then they are in this farm. It's not really a farm. They call it the farm, but it's more like just a building. And there's lots of rules. They cannot have their devices with them. They cannot eat whatever they want. They need to follow a bunch of rules and exercise every day. I don't know. It was really weird. However, that part only starts like halfway through the book. So much so that at some point I started wondering if I got the synopsis wrong and I was reading about something else. So the first part is just the backstory of this one character, and it doesn't bring anything important to the table. And then halfway through we go into the farm, but then in the farm is all this gossipy and everyone talks bad about each other, and it's just so irrelevant. And the ending, it was one of the worst endings I've ever read. Picture Us in the Light by Kelly Loy Gilbert. This was our chapterized read of the month of April, the book that we read together during 10 days or something. And this follows the story of this Asian family, Danny, a teenager boy, and his parents, and they live in America, in San Francisco. And one day Danny finds in his dad's wardrobe a box with some letters written in Chinese, but he cannot understand what the letters say, but he sees that there's information about something else in there. And when he asks his parents about it, they tell him to not ask any questions and it's none of their business. And basically they reveal to him that they had a daughter in the past, but she's now dead. And then Danny obviously makes his life goal to discover what happened to the sister. However, there's so many unanswered questions. We did a live show about this book here on my channel. I'm gonna leave the link in the cards and down there in the description. That live show is in English in case you wanna go watch our thoughts. It's obviously full of spoilers, so keep that in mind. But there's basically a bunch of unanswered questions and lots of things that don't really make any sense, because if he was really trying to find out what happened to his sister, he would, in my opinion, dig a little deeper and ask questions. And this family was really annoying because they were always dismissing his questions, and that's not fair. Come on, he's 17 years old, he's entitled and allowed to ask questions, and the parents shouldn't keep that many secrets from their kids. But that's my opinion. This was a 3-star for me. I was very disappointed because this book had such good reviews saying it's the most emotional young adult of the last few years, and I didn't feel emotion at any point. Rules for Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. In America, this book is called 8 Perfect Murders. I don't know why they changed the title of the book, probably something to do with copyright, I don't know, but it's the same book. This has a very interesting plot. Basically, there's this guy who owns a bookshop, and a few years ago, he published on a blog this post of, in his opinion, the 8 murders that happen in fiction that were the perfect murders, the perfect crime, where they couldn't find the killer. And now in our current timeline, one day a FBI agent gets into his bookshop and starts asking him questions, because apparently there's someone out there in real life that is killing people following his list. So the FBI agent goes and asks him to help her, give her some insights of the stories and the plots of those books. I found it really interesting. Now, looking back in perspective, it does have a few things that are not realistic, and I could point many of them out, but I'm just gonna drop this one in the air. So the FBI agent is not exactly a reader. Like, she reads a little bit, but is not a habit reader. However, she starts reading the books that he mentioned in that list to help her have more insight for the investigation. And many times it's mentioned that she read a book overnight. Like, Come on, that doesn't happen. Even for a reader to read a book in one go overnight, it needs to be a really good, gripping book. It needs to be very interesting. But if you are not a reader, it takes you forever to finish a book. That's my opinion. I might be wrong. Correct me if you think I'm wrong. But I still gave this book a 5 stars. I still recommend it. It's very mysterious. And I was very curious to see how everything was linked up. It did remind me of some series like Criminal Minds and like the backstage and the thinking process of the killers. And it has some things related to the dark web as well, which I always find very interesting reading about it. So 5 stars, I recommend it. Give it a try. Oh, are we there yet? I'm getting really tired. I still have all these to talk about. Oh, why did I read so much? For Better and Worse by Margaret Hunt. Another thriller. This one follows a couple that when they met at university at law school, they were both studying to be lawyers. They used to have this private joke about how they could probably together commit the perfect murder and that people who get caught are because they are stupid. I just love everything about that statement. Fast forward many years, they're married, they have a daughter or a son. They have a son, and something happens. I'm not gonna tell you what happens, but they kill someone, and it's basically them trying to get away with it because it ended up not going according to plan. So now they have to work with it and use their knowledge to try and work around the situation in order not to get caught. I found this very interesting. I was so nervous for them, and at the same time the relationship that they had with each other, trying to help each other but feeling frustrated at the same time. I don't know, it was written in such a way that it did make me understand what they were feeling, even though I don't intend on killing anyone for now. You know what I mean. What am I trying to say? I don't know. I gave this book 5 stars. Verity by Colleen Hoover. I've already spoke so much about this book. Basically, everyone needs to read this. You don't need to know the synopsis. I read this without ever reading the synopsis, and actually until today I haven't read what it says here at the back. Also, the cover is like rubber, so if that doesn't make you want to read the book, I don't know what it does. And it's basically the story of this girl who gets contracted to go finish writing a series of books of this author called Verity. The girl goes to their house to do some research, read the previous books, read Verity's notes for the future books and all those things, and then the whole plot happens in that house, their house, and it's so good, it's so unpredictable, it's very disgusting at some point, it has very visual scenes that really want to make you like, oh, but it's so good. If you haven't read it, you need to go read it. I don't care if you want to read it or not, you're gonna read it anyway. It's so good, and please someone tell me they're gonna make a movie out of this, because they must. I'm so happy I don't have to do this every month, these wrap-ups that are so long. You Are Not Alone by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This is the third book of this weird pair, these ladies. I've said this before. I don't know what they eat for breakfast because they come up with such weird ideas. In this book, we follow this girl that one day in the underground in New York, she saw another girl commit suicide. She jumped in front of the train and she died. She's a bit messed up because of that, because of witnessing that. And then there's these two sisters. They start connecting with this girl that witnessed the murder. And then there's lots of freaked up things happening. I cannot really tell you anything because it's one of those books where literally everything is a spoiler. So I'm not going to tell you anything else. It's basically these two completely different people, well, three, the girl and the two sisters, and how their lives get entwined. I gave this book a 4 stars. It's not anything mind-blowing, but it's still a very interesting read, and I do think it's one of those books that for people who don't read a lot of thrillers, this is gonna blow your mind. The Poison Garden by A.J. Banner. This is a really short book. You can read this in one afternoon very easily. And this follows the story. How do I explain this? It's a married couple and they always had a good relationship. But then when they've been married for just a year or something, she discovers the husband is cheating on her. I don't think that's a spoiler. It happens right in the beginning of the book. Obviously, she wants to get divorced from him. But then the husband starts acting really weird. Nothing is what it seems and no one is who they claim to be. I think that's a good way of putting it. It's very mysterious as well. I do think it's one of those books like the previous one. If you haven't read many thrillers, this is probably gonna blow your mind as well. The twists that it takes, mostly towards the end, are very good. It's very well written. Even when I thought the story was over, something else happened and it changes completely the course of actions. I gave this a 4 star. Then I heard the audiobook for The Gravity of Us, which follows the story of this famous teenager boy. He's famous online. I didn't really understand why he was famous. He does these live things, but is that all he does to become famous. He just goes live, and I don't know. His dad is a pilot for Delta, the airline in America, and then he applies to become an astronaut, and he is successful, so they have to move to Texas to join NASA. In Texas, they have to live in this neighborhood where all the astronauts and all their families live. Each one has their house, but they're all in the same area. And there's also a reality show being recorded with the families and like the insides and the backstages and all those things of NASA. When they move to Texas, our main character meets this other boy who is another astro kid, like they say, because he's the son of another astronaut. And it's very instant love. They fall in love very quickly, and it's one of those platonic loves and I cannot live without you kind of thing, and making plans for the future. Very, very insta love. If you don't like that trope, then stay away from this book, because literally on their second time seeing each other, they are completely mad in love. Basically, then it gets revealed that the reality show that is being recorded there is trying to bring NASA down. Oh, and they were preparing this mission to go to Mars for the first time. So then the boy decides to use his online power and his fame to help NASA and to make sure people don't lose their jobs and all that. It's a cute young adult story. I gave it 5 stars because I don't know, apparently I'm someone who enjoys things about space. I don't know why I gave it 5 stars. The romance within them, I must say, I'm a loser and I quite enjoyed it, even though it makes no sense. It was cute. I don't know, I gave this book 5 stars. Is that weird? Probably. When the Moon Was Ours by Anne-Marie McLemore. I gave DNF to this book at like 60 pages. Yeah, 66 pages I DNF this book. I have no clue what this was about. I read 60 pages of this and I couldn't understand anything. There's this girl who has flowers that grow in her wrists, but then there's these sisters that want to cut the flowers. I don't know why. And I never understood if it was painful or not, but it seemed like it was, because the flowers were attached to her skin. And that is pretty much as far into the information that I got. I didn't understand anything, so I DNF'd it. And the last book of the month, oh thank God we're reaching the end of this video. The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. As you probably know, or you might not know, Ruth Ware is the author of one of my favorite thrillers of all time, The Turn of the Key, that came out last year. If you haven't read it, please go read it, it's so good. This one follows the story of this lady who is a journalist or works for a magazine or something, and she goes into this cruise ship to make an article about it, to read about it, make some advertising about it, something, in a work situation basically. On the cabin next to hers, the room basically, she sees something suspicious and she tries talking to the security of the ship, but no one really believes her, and then she starts doubting, am I going crazy? Because basically she saw someone who apparently doesn't exist, and we also get a bit weird, like, is she actually telling the truth or is she actually going crazy? So it's one of those unrelatable narrators, basically. It was very interesting in the beginning because you wanted to know what was happening, right? But then I have the feeling like, so this was interesting, it's setting up the premises and whatever. And then this whole thing was so repetitive. Basically, it was the whole book, her looking for this lady that she thought she'd seen. But it was just so repetitive. I was really enjoying the beginning, and then it got so boring and repetitive, and then the ending wasn't able to save this. So I ended up giving this a 3-star, which was sad. In the beginning, I honestly thought it was gonna be not the new Turn of the Key, but a very decent thriller, and I was wrong. That is it. These are the 13 books, kind of, that I read, kind of, during the month of April. I'm very tired. I've been recording this for ages. I don't look forward to editing this video, so wish me luck. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if you agree with me in case you've read any of them, or if you are curious to read any of them, all the usual things. And I'll see you very soon here on the channel with another video. Who knows what it might be? I don't, you don't, no one knows. This channel is just full of surprises all the time. Anyway, stay put and I'll see you soon. Bye! Also, look at my cute doggo. Cute doggo! Are you a cute doggo? Yes, you are! Have you been laying there the whole time? So people are not gonna listen to what I'm saying because everyone's just going to be like, she's so cute! Yes, she is! Oh, beautiful Suki! Alright, bye!